My wife cheated, used my money to fund a lavish influencer vacation with her friends, publicly humiliated me, so I quietly filed for divorce and took back everything she took for granted. Michael Gray's life unraveled the moment he trusted Sabrina with their vacation. A civil engineer in Seattle, he'd built a steady world, quiet, practical, centered on his kids, Tyler and Madison. At 42, his days were long but predictable. Blueprints, deadlines, and the hum of a family home he'd worked hard to keep. Sabrina, his wife of 16 years, was the opposite. A dazzling socialite whose Instagram glowed with curated perfection. Her 200,000 followers adored her glamorous posts, her charm at charity galas, her knack for turning heads. To the world, they were a power couple. To Michael, they were drifting. He felt it most at night, lying beside her in their Capitol Hill Craftsman. Sabrina's phone cast a faint glow as she scrolled, her manicured nails tapping out replies to comments. She'd murmur about needing more likes, more invites, more something. Michael, exhausted from managing a bridge retrofit project, would nod, hoping she'd notice his silence. She rarely did. Their marriage wasn't broken, but it was fraying, thread by thread, under the weight of her ambition and his restraint. The kids were the glue. Tyler, 14, was all elbows and sarcasm, sneaking extra screen time to play Fortnite. Madison, 10, still crawled into Michael's lap to read Harry Potter, her giggles filling the house. When summer camp took them away for 2 weeks, the quiet hit hard. Michael missed their chaos. Sabrina saw opportunity. "We need a break," she said one evening, her green eyes glinting over a glass of Pinot Grigio. "Just us. Napa Valley. I found the perfect place, a vineyard resort, exclusive, romantic. You'll love it." Michael hesitated. Napa wasn't his scene, too flashy, too expensive. He'd rather hike Rainier or grill in the backyard. But Sabrina's smile, rare and warm, softened him. "Sounds nice," he said, ignoring the knot in his gut. "You plan it. I'm swamped at work." Her face lit up. "Trust me, babe. It'll be unforgettable." He should have known better. Sabrina's plans always had a catch. Michael leaned back in his office chair the next day, staring at a spreadsheet of cost estimates. His phone buzzed, a text from Sabrina with a heart emoji and a link to the resort. He clicked it. The website screamed luxury, infinity pools, Michelin-starred dining, suites that cost more per night than his first car. His jaw tightened. They could afford it, but why this? Why now? Because Sabrina needed it. Not them, her. She thrived on being seen, on curating moments for strangers online. Michael was just the guy who paid the bills, who kept the machine running. He rubbed his temples, picturing her at some influencer event, laughing too loud, her diamond earrings catching the light. He'd always been the steady one, the one who didn't complain, but lately he felt like a ghost in his own life. Still, he wanted to believe her. A getaway could fix things, reconnect them, remind her of the early days when she'd sneak into his dorm to study, stealing his fries and kissing him between calculus problems. Maybe Napa would bring that back. Maybe she'd see him again. So he said yes, packed a bag, ignored the voice in his head that whispered something's off. As their SUV rolled toward the airport, Sabrina hummed along to the radio, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. She reached for his hand, her fingers cool against his calluses. "It's going to be perfect," she said. Michael squeezed her hand and nodded. He wanted to believe her, but deep down he knew. Perfection always came at a price. Michael Gray didn't trust surprises, but he trusted Sabrina. That was his first mistake. The week before their Napa trip, she buzzed around their Seattle home like a woman possessed, booking flights, confirming reservations, dropping cryptic hints about something special. Michael, neck in a gig. "Sounds great," he'd say, eyes on his laptop. He didn't have the energy to question her. Work was brutal, and Sabrina's excitement felt like a lifeline. You've always been the planner. Their wedding, their kids' birthday parties, even their house remodels, Sabrina orchestrated every detail with a smile that made you believe it was all worth it. Michael, practical to a fault, was fine letting her lead. His job was to build bridges, not dreams. So when she insisted on handling Napa, he didn't push back. "Just tell me what to pack," he said, and she kissed his cheek, promising it'd be their best trip yet. The morning of the flight, Michael woke early, brewed coffee, and checked his email. A confirmation from the resort caught his eye. $1,200, 0 cents a night for their suite. He winced but shrugged it off. Sabrina deserved nice things, and he'd always provided them. He packed his suitcase, khakis, polos, one nice jacket for dinner, and drove them to SeaTac Airport. Sabrina, in a flowy sundress and oversized sunglasses, chatted nonstop about the vineyard's history. Michael half smiled, trying to match her energy. Maybe this trip would close the gap between them. The flight was smooth, the rental car ready at SFO. As they wound through Napa's rolling hills, Michael felt a flicker of calm. The landscape was stunning, golden vines stretching under a clear sky, air thick with the scent of earth and grapes. Sabrina scrolled her phone, snapping selfies with the scenery. "This place is perfect," she said, posting one instantly. Michael kept his eyes on the road. They pulled into the resort just after noon. The place was a palace, white stone buildings draped in ivy, fountains glinting in the sun, staff in crisp uniforms scurrying like they served royalty. Michael's stomach twisted. This wasn't a vacation, it was a production. He parked, and a valet whisked the car away. Sabrina looped her arm through his, practically bouncing. "Isn't it incredible?" she said. He nodded, forcing a smile. The opulence felt like a weight. At check-in, the desk clerk beamed, handing over their keys. Michael glanced at the paperwork, expecting 2 names. Instead, he saw his credit card listed for 4 suites. He frowned, about to ask, when a shriek cut through the lobby. "Sabrina!" 3 women, tanned, polished, dripping with designer bags, swarmed them. Chloe, Jenna, and Victoria, Sabrina's influencer squad, materialized like they'd been summoned. Hugs, air kisses, laughter. It was a blur. Michael stood frozen, suitcase in hand. "Surprise," Sabrina grinned, squeezing his arm. "I invited the girls. It's going to be so fun." Michael's mouth went dry. He looked at her, searching for an explanation, but she was already posing for a group selfie with them. The clerk slid 4 key cards across the counter, each tied to his name. Chloe, in a pink jumpsuit, winked at him. "You're a saint for this, Mikey." Jenna and Victoria giggled, their eyes flicking over him like he was furniture. He swallowed his confusion, his jaw tight. "Didn't know we were having company," he said quietly. Sabrina waved it off. "Oh, babe, you'll love it. We're all here to relax." She linked arms with Jenna, leading the pack toward the bar. Michael trailed behind, the lobby's marble floor echoing under his steps. The women's laughter rang out, sharp and bright, but it didn't reach him. He felt like a stranger in his own vacation, and the knot in his gut tightened. This wasn't what he'd signed up for. Michael Gray stood in the Vineyard Resort's dining room, a glass of overpriced Cabernet in his hand, feeling like he'd wandered into someone else's life. The place screamed wealth, crystal chandeliers, linen tablecloths, waiters who moved like they were auditioning for a ballet. Sabrina and her friends, Chloe, Jenna, and Victoria, were already at the center of it all, their laughter slicing through the hum of polite conversation. Michael lingered near the edge of their booth, his tie suddenly too tight. He'd agreed to Napa for a quiet escape with his wife. Now he was a +1 at an influencer convention. Sabrina caught his eye and waved him over, her smile wide but fleeting. "Babe, sit. You're being so quiet." Her voice was playful, but it carried an edge, like she was performing for the table. Chloe, in a sequin dress that caught the light, patted the seat next to her. "Yeah, Mikey, don't be a stranger." The others giggled, and Michael forced a nod, sliding in beside her. The nickname grated. He was 42, not some frat guy, but he let it go. He always did. Dinner was a blur of small plates and smaller talk. The women dominated, swapping stories about brand deals and follower counts. Sabrina glowed, tossing her hair as she recounted a recent trip to Aspen. Michael picked at his lamb, half listening, his mind drifting to Tyler and Madison at camp. Were they having fun? Did they miss home? He wondered if they'd noticed how distant their parents had become. "You okay, babe?" Sabrina's voice snapped him back. She leaned across the table, her eyes searching his for a second before flicking to her friends. "He's just tired from work, right?" Michael nodded, though it wasn't true. "Yeah, long week." He didn't want to start anything, not here, not now. Chloe smirked, swirling her wine. "God, Sabrina, you're so lucky. My guy would have bailed on a trip like this. Michael's like dedicated." The way she said it didn't feel like a compliment. Jenna chimed in. "Seriously, he's a keeper. Most husbands would have freaked about us crashing." "Crashing," Michael said, his voice low, trying to keep it light. "Thought this was the plan." The table went quiet for a beat. Sabrina laughed a little too loud. "Oh, come on, it's fun. You love Chloe and Jenna, don't you?" Her eyes pleaded with him to play along. Victoria, scrolling her phone, looked up with a sly grin. "Yeah, Mikey, you're basically one of the girls now." They all laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. Michael's grip tightened on his glass. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The jokes kept coming, subtle at first, then bolder. Chloe teased him about his dad's shoes. Jenna asked if he ever loosened up, and Victoria made a crack about how Sabrina kept him in check. Each jab landed like a pebble, small but stinging, piling up until he felt buried. He watched Sabrina from the corner of his eye. She laughed along, her hand brushing Jenna's arm, her face lit with approval. Did she hear what they were saying? Did she care? Michael sipped his wine, the taste bitter now. He'd always been the steady one, reliable, quiet, the guy who didn't make waves. But tonight, that felt like a trap. Every time he opened his mouth to speak, one of them cut in, redirecting the conversation to hashtags or some exclusive party in LA. He was there, but he wasn't. Invisible. As dessert arrived, tiny plates of lavender panna cotta, Sabrina's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then grinned at the table. "Oh my God, my post from the lobby already has 5,000 likes," Chloe squealed, and they dove into a debate about filters. Michael pushed his plate away, his appetite gone. He excused himself to the restroom, needing air, needing space. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, the chatter fading behind him. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photo of Tyler and Madison from last summer, both of them grinning, covered in sand at Alki Beach. His chest ached. This trip wasn't about reconnecting with Sabrina. It was her stage, and he was just the guy holding the spotlight. He pocketed the phone and straightened up. He'd get through dinner. He'd keep the peace. But the cracks in his patience were starting to show, and he wasn't sure how long he could hold them together. Michael Gray sat alone in his hotel room, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound breaking the silence. The resort's opulence, plush carpet, gold-trimmed drapes, a bed that could have fit a family, felt like a mockery now. He'd been handed a key to this separate suite at check-in, Sabrina's voice breezy as she explained she'd bunk with Jenna to catch up. He hadn't argued, he never did, but the sting of it lingered, sharp and cold as he stared at the untouched minibar. It started at the front desk. The clerk, all smiles, had slid the paperwork across the counter, confirming 4 suites under Michael's credit card. 4. Not one for him and Sabrina, but one for each of her friends, Chloe, Jenna, Victoria. He'd blinked, his voice steady but tight. "All on my card?" Sabrina, already halfway to the bar with the girls, turned back with a laugh. "It's just easier this way, babe. I'll sort it out later." Her eyes didn't meet his, and she was gone before he could press easier. That word stuck in his throat now. He'd trusted her, like always, assuming she'd clear it up. But dinner had shifted something. The jokes, the sidelong glances, the way Sabrina leaned into her friend's laughter. It wasn't just exclusion, it was disregard. Michael wasn't a jealous man, but he wasn't blind. Something was wrong. He pulled out his phone, the screen's glow harsh in the dim room. His banking app loaded slowly, each second twisting the knot in his gut. He logged in, scrolling through recent transactions. His breath caught. The resort deposit. $2,800, 0 cents. A wine tour package, $2, 20 cents. Spa appointments for 4, $1, 60 cents. A dinner reservation tagged private chef experience, $3, 0. All posted in the last 24 hours, all tied to his card. No texts from Sabrina, no heads up, no consent. Just charges, piling up like a landslide. Michael set the phone down, his hands trembling. He wasn't broke. Years of steady contracts had built a solid cushion. But this wasn't about money. It was about trust. Sabrina hadn't just invited her friends without asking. She'd turned their getaway into her personal stage, and he was footing the bill. He pictured her at dinner, giggling as Chloe called him dependable, Victoria's smirk when she'd said he's lucky to tag along. Had they known? Had she planned this? He stood, pacing the room, his reflection flickering in the floor-length mirror. He looked tired, lines etched deeper around his eyes, shoulders slumped from carrying too much for too long. 16 years with Sabrina flashed through his mind. Early days in a cramped apartment, her laugh filling the space as they burned cheap dinners. The birth of Tyler, then Madison, moments that glued them together. When had it shifted? When had she stopped seeing him? He stopped at the window, the vineyard stretching dark and endless below. Part of him wanted to storm to her suite, demand answers, shake her awake to the hurt clawing his chest. But Michael didn't do outbursts. He solved problems, methodically, quietly, like he tackled a failing bridge design. So he sat back down, opened his laptop, and logged into their joint accounts. More charges, boutique shops, a car service, even a deposit for some influencer event next month. All her. None discussed. His jaw clenched. He clicked through to their credit card portal, checking limits. The card tied to the resort was nearing $15,000, 0 cents in pending charges. He exhaled, slow and deliberate, forcing calm. Sabrina hadn't just blindsided him with her friends. She'd weaponized his trust, spending like it was a game. And he'd let her, thinking it kept her happy, kept them together. He closed the laptop, the room's silence heavier now. The kids' faces flashed in his mind, Tyler's lopsided grin, Madison's giggle. They deserved better than a marriage held together by habit. Michael didn't know what came next, but he knew one thing. He couldn't stay invisible anymore. He grabbed his phone again, thumb hovering over his lawyer's contact. Not yet, he thought, but soon. Michael Gray's world cracked open in a dimly lit hallway of the Napa Valley Resort. It was past midnight, the vineyard quiet except for the faint clink of glasses and laughter spilling from Sabrina's suite. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, He'd only stepped out to clear his head, the weight of the day, her friend's jabs, the mounting charges on his card pressing him toward a breaking point. But as he passed her door, her voice stopped him cold. "He's so boring," Sabrina said, the word dripping with disdain. "I mean, God, it's like dragging a corpse around sometimes." Laughter erupted. Chloe's high-pitched cackle, Jenna's snort, Victoria's low chuckle. Michael froze, his pulse hammering in his ears. "Seriously," Chloe chimed in, "how do you deal? I'd go insane if my guy was that dull." "Oh, I manage," Sabrina replied, her tone smug. "He pays for everything, doesn't he? That's his job, keep the lights on while I live my life." Michael's breath caught. He leaned closer, the door's cool wood against his palm, every word slicing deeper. Victoria's voice cut through next. "You've got him trained, girl. What's he gonna do, leave? He's lucky to have you." "Exactly," Sabrina said. "He's a burden half the time, but he's useful. I mean, look at this place. Who else is footing the bill for this?" More laughter, sharp and cruel. Michael's hand fell from the door. He stepped back, his chest tight, the air too thick to breathe. He'd known things were off, her distance, her obsession with status, but hearing it laid bare, hearing her mock him, gutted him. He wasn't a husband to her. He was a wallet, a prop. He walked, feet heavy, the hallway stretching endlessly before him. The resort's luxury, marble floors, soft lighting, felt like a cage now. His mind raced, replaying 16 years. Had it always been like this? Had he been bleed, or had she changed? The early days, her teasing smile, late-night talks, felt like a lie. Or maybe they'd been real once, and he'd just lost her somewhere along the way. By the time he reached the hotel bar, his shock had hardened into resolve. The place was nearly empty, a lone bartender polishing glasses under amber light. Michael slid onto a stool, ordered a bourbon, and pulled out his phone. His lawyer's contact stared back at him. David Reese, an old college buddy who'd handled their wills years ago. His thumb hovered, then pressed call. It was late, but David picked up on the third ring. "Mike, you okay?" David's voice was groggy but sharp. "No," Michael said, his voice low, steady. "I need advice. It's Sabrina." He laid it out, her spending, the friends, the betrayal he'd just overheard. David listened, interrupting only to clarify. When Michael finished, the line was quiet for a moment. "Sounds like you've got grounds," David said finally. "You want to move on this?" "Yet," Michael said, "but soon." "What's my first step?" "Protect yourself," David said. "Money, assets, the kids. Start documenting everything. Charges, texts, anything that shows what she's doing. And don't tip her off." Michael nodded, though David couldn't see. "Thanks, I'll call tomorrow." He hung up, the bourbon untouched in front of him. His next move was clear. He opened his banking app, fingers moving with purpose. One by one, he froze the credit cards tied to Sabrina's name. The resort card, her personal Visa, even the joint Amex. He didn't cancel them outright, that'd be too loud. A freeze was quieter, enough to stop the bleeding without her noticing. Not. He leaned back, the bar's stillness settling around him. Tyler and Madison's faces flashed in his mind, his anchor, his reason. Whatever came next, he'd shield them. Sabrina could have her spotlight, her friends, her curated life. But she wouldn't have him. Not anymore. Michael stood, leaving the drink behind. He didn't need it. For the first time in years, his head was clear. He walked back to his room, each step lighter, the decision made. He was done being invisible. Sabrina Gray's world began to crumble at 3 p.m. sharp, in the middle of a sun-drenched wine tasting on the resort's private terrace. The vineyard sommelier poured a rare vintage, waxing poetic about oak notes and velvet finishes, while Sabrina and her friends, Chloe, Jenna, and Victoria, posed for photos with their glasses, filters already in mind. The scene was perfect. Golden light, rolling hills, their laughter ringing out like a curated soundtrack. Michael wasn't there. He hadn't been invited. Sabrina barely noticed his absence. She'd texted him earlier. "Having so much fun, join us later?" But hadn't checked for a reply. He'd be fine, probably holed up in his room with work emails like always. This trip was hers, a chance to shine, to cement her place among her friends' glittering circle. She tilted her glass, catching the light for a quick video clip. Her followers would eat it up. Then the server approached, a polite smile masking unease. "Mrs. Gray, I'm sorry, but there's an issue with your card." Sabrina blinked, mid-pose. "What? No, that's impossible." She waved him off, turning back to Chloe, who was mid-rant about a rival influencer. The server hesitated, then leaned closer. "It's been declined. For the tasting and the lunch earlier. We'll need another form of payment." The table went quiet. Chloe's eyebrows shot up. Jenna set her phone down. Victoria smirked, sipping her wine. Sabrina laughed, sharp and forced. "There's a mistake. Run it again." She handed over the card, Michael's card, her fingers brushing the embossed name. The server nodded and left, but the mood had shifted, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Minutes later, he returned, his tone firmer. "Declined again. I've spoken to the manager. We need to settle the balance now. $2,400.00 for today's activities." Sabrina's smile faltered. She fumbled for her phone, opening her banking app, her pulse quickening. The card's status glared back. Frozen. She tried another, same result. Her personal Visa, the joint Amex, all locked. Her stomach dropped. "I'll call my husband," she said, voice tight, ignoring Chloe's whispered yikes. She dialed Michael, but it went straight to voicemail. A text bounced back undelivered. Panic crept in. She stood, excusing herself, and hurried to the lobby, heels clinking on marble. The front desk confirmed the worst. Michael had checked out that morning. His suite was empty, no forwarding address. Sabrina's mind raced. He wouldn't just leave. Would he? She called again. Nothing. The manager appeared, clipboard in hand, voice polite but unyielding. "Mrs. Gray, the outstanding balance for the suite, spa, and dining is $12,700.00. We need payment immediately, or we'll have to involve our legal team." Chloe, Jenna, and Victoria materialized behind her, their faces a mix of annoyance and amusement. "What's going on?" Jenna asked, arms crossed. Sabrina forced a smile, her throat dry. "Just a mix-up, I'll fix it." But the truth was sinking in. Michael had cut her off, the cards, the money, the safety net gone. Victoria scoffed, grabbing her purse. "This is a mess, Sabrina. You said you had this handled." Chloe nodded, already texting. "I'm not covering your bill. I didn't sign up for this." They turned cold, their loyalty as fleeting as a trending hashtag. Within minutes, they were booking a car to the airport, leaving Sabrina alone with the manager's stare and a growing crowd of curious guests. She stood frozen, clutching her phone, the weight of her choices crashing down. Her friends were gone, her credit useless, her image cracking like cheap glass. And Michael, quiet, steady Michael, had slipped away, leaving her to face the chaos she'd built. For the first time in years, Sabrina felt small, exposed, and utterly alone. Sabrina Gray stood in the resort's lobby, the manager's clipboard like a guillotine over her neck. The $12,700.00 balance loomed, unpaid, as guests whispered behind manicured hands. Chloe, Jenna, and Victoria were gone, their rental car's taillights fading down the vineyard's drive. Sabrina's phone was useless. No replies from Michael, no money in her accounts, just a screen full of notifications from followers oblivious to her unraveling. She'd built a life on appearances, and now it was collapsing in real time. The manager cleared his throat, his patience thinning. "Mrs. Gray, we need a resolution. Now." Sabrina's hands shook as she fumbled for words, her usual charm useless against cold numbers. I'll figure it out," she stammered. Knowing she had nothing, no cards, no cash, no one to call, her brother in Portland might help, but he'd lecture her, and she couldn't face that yet. Still scrambling for a lie when a staff member approached, holding a crisp envelope. "This arrived for you," the woman said, her tone neutral. Sabrina's name was typed across the front, no return address. She tore it open, her pulse racing, hoping for a lifeline. Instead, she found divorce papers. Michael's signature already scrawled at the bottom, dated that morning. A letter from his lawyer, David Reese, outlined the terms. Full custody of Tyler and Madison, the Seattle house in Michael's name, no alimony. Sabrina's knees buckled. She gripped the counter, the room spinning. "He can't do this," she whispered, but the papers were real, legal, final. Michael hadn't just left, he'd planned his exit, moving faster than she'd ever thought him capable. The manager, oblivious to her shock, pressed again about the bill. Sabrina's voice cracked. "I don't have it. I'll pay later." But the resort wasn't a charity. They'd hold her luggage, freeze her accounts, maybe call the police if she didn't comply. Word spread faster than she could contain it. A guest snapped a photo, Sabrina, pale and frantic, clutching the envelope. It hit Instagram within minutes, tagged with Sabrina Gray and influencer failed. Her followers, once loyal, turned vicious. Comments poured in. Knew she was fake. Guessed the perfect life was a scam. Chloe posted a cryptic story about dodging drama, and Jenna unfollowed her outright. Victoria, ever the opportunist, leaked a voice note to a gossip blog hinting at Sabrina's money troubles. By evening, her follower count was hemorrhaging, down 10,000 and falling. Sabrina begged the resort for time, promising to wire funds she didn't have. They gave her 24 hours, but her options were gone. She called her brother, swallowing pride as he sighed through the phone. "I'll send a ticket," he said. But you're on your own after that. She boarded a Greyhound to Portland the next day, her designer bags confiscated, wearing the same sundress from the wine tasting. The bus smelled of stale coffee and regret. Back in Seattle, Michael was already home. He'd landed that morning, the kids still at camp, the house quiet but his. He sat at the kitchen table, a beer in hand, staring at photos of Tyler and Madison on the fridge. He'd emailed David from Napa, setting the divorce in motion before Sabrina could counter. His accounts were locked, his assets secured, his heart heavy but certain. The betrayal still burned. He'd taken back his life. Sabrina's empire was ashes. Her friends had scattered, her followers turned, her image shattered. She'd always thrived on being seen, but now the spotlight was merciless, exposing every crack. Michael, though, was done watching from the sidelines. He had his kids, his peace, and a future to rebuild. One that didn't include her. Michael Gray woke to the smell of coffee and the soft clatter of dishes in his Seattle kitchen. It was a Saturday, 2 weeks since he'd left Napa, and the house felt like his again, warm, lived-in, grounded. Tyler and Madison were due back from camp tomorrow, and he'd spent the morning cleaning their rooms, restocking their favorite snacks, making sure everything was ready. The divorce papers were filed, his account secured, and Sabrina was a fading echo. For the first time in years, Michael felt steady. He sat at the kitchen table, a notebook open, jotting down how he'd break the news to the kids. Not the ugly details, Sabrina's betrayal, her friend's cruelty, but the truth they'd need. Mom and Dad weren't together anymore, but they'd both always loved them. Tyler, sharp and skeptical, might ask questions. Madison would want hugs and reassurance. Michael would be ready for both. He'd already called their camp counselor, ensuring they were okay, and lined up a family therapist to ease the transition. His focus was clear: keep them safe, keep them whole. Outside, the August sun lit up the backyard, where he'd spent yesterday tinkering with an old Ford truck, a project he'd abandoned when Sabrina complained it was messy. Now, the garage was his sanctuary, tools scattered, classic rock humming from a battered radio. He'd also started hiking again, hitting trails around Rainier with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. Last night, he'd cooked simple pasta with Tyler's favorite sauce, savoring the quiet act of making something real. His phone buzzed, a text from David, his lawyer. Sabrina's team reached out, no contest on custody or the house. Should wrap up fast. Michael exhaled, relief washing over him. He'd expected a fight. Sabrina's pride wouldn't let her go quietly. But she had no leverage. The Napa charges, the social fallout, her own admissions caught in texts he'd saved. They'd boxed her in. The house, the savings, the kids' college funds were his. She'd get a small settlement, enough to start over, but nothing more. He stood, stretching, and walked to the living room. Photos lined the mantel. Tyler's soccer games, Madison's dance recitals. A rare shot of all four of them at the Space Needle, smiling like they meant it. Michael lingered on that one. He didn't hate Sabrina, not really. She'd given him the kids, years of good memories before things soured. But he couldn't carry her anymore. Couldn't let her hunger for status erode what he'd built. The doorbell rang, startling him. A delivery guy handed over a package. Camp letters from Tyler and Madison, forwarded by the counselor. Michael tore them open, smiling at Tyler's messy scrawl about canoe races and Madison's glittery doodles of stars. They were happy, oblivious to the storm. He'd keep it that way as long as he could. Later, he drove to the hardware store, picking up paint for Madison's room. She'd wanted blue walls forever, but Sabrina always vetoed it. Now, it was happening. On the way back, he passed a cafe where he and Sabrina used to grab breakfast, back when love felt simple. He didn't stop. The past was done, and he was building something new, not just for the kids, but himself. By evening, Michael sat on the porch, a beer in hand, the city's Hume distant. He thought of Napa, of Sabrina's laughter cutting him down, and felt no anger, just distance. He'd been invisible too long, but that was over. Tomorrow, he'd pick up Tyler and Madison, hug them tight, and start fresh. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was his, and he'd walk it with purpose. Sabrina Gray's fall was as public as her rise. 6 weeks after Napa, she stood behind the counter of a Portland boutique, folding silk scarves under fluorescent lights. The shop smelled of lavender candles, a faint echo of the luxury she'd once chased. But the reality was humbling. $15.00 an hour, a shared apartment with her brother, and a phone that no longer buzzed with invites. Her Instagram, once a glittering shrine to her life, was a ghost town. Half her followers had fled, the rest lingered to mock or pity. The hashtag Sabrina Gray and influencer fail still trended occasionally, each post a knife twist. Portland was her exile. Her brother Mark had grudgingly offered his guest room after the resort debacle, but his patience was thin. "You can't stay forever," he'd said, his voice heavy with years of watching her chase validation. She'd nodded, swallowing pride, and took the first job she could find. The boutique's owner, a sharp old woman named Lila, didn't care about her past, just that she showed up on time. Sabrina did, every day, her manicured nails now chipped, her designer wardrobe replaced with thrift store blouses. The first weeks were brutal. Customers recognized her, whispering as they browsed. One snapped a photo, smirking, and Sabrina pretended not to notice, her cheeks burning. At night, she'd scroll through old posts, galas, vacations, her curated perfection, wondering where it went wrong. She'd always thought Michael would bend, that he'd forgive her like he always had. But he'd vanished, taking the kids, the house, her safety net. Her friends were worse. Chloe blocked her. Jenna sent one cold text. "Sort yourself out." Victoria, predictably, was pitching a tell-all to a gossip site. Yet the shop became a strange anchor. Folding clothes, restocking shelves, ringing up sales. It was mindless but grounding. Lila noticed her knack for pairing outfits and started asking her opinion on displays. One slow afternoon, a customer, an older woman with kind eyes, complimented Sabrina's suggestion on a dress. "You've got a gift," she said. Sabrina smiled, startled by how much it meant. For years she'd lived for likes and clout. This felt real. She started journaling, something Mark suggested during one of his rare soft moments. At first it was angry rant about Michael, her friends, the unfairness of it all. But over weeks, it shifted. She wrote about the boutique, about missing Tyler's sarcasm and Madison's hugs, about how she'd ignored Michael's quiet strength. She saw it now. She'd taken him for granted, chasing a spotlight that left her hollow. The realization didn't fix anything, but it cracked open something new, a desire to be better, not for followers, but for herself. One evening, Lila caught her sketching a window display idea during a break. "You should show me those," Lila said, nodding at the notebook. Sabrina hesitated, then handed it over. Lila flipped through, impressed. "This is good. Let's try it." The next day, they rearranged the storefront together, and when customers complimented it, Lila gave Sabrina full credit. For the first time in months, Sabrina felt a spark of pride that wasn't tied to a screen. She wasn't healed, not even close. Bills piled up, Mark's patience waned, and the kids' absence was a constant ache. But the boutique, the sketches, the small nods from Sabrina Gray sat at a corner table in a Seattle cafe, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. It was early spring, 8 months since Napa, and the city felt both familiar and foreign. Gone were her designer heels and curated outfit. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her hair in a loose braid. The cafe's hum. She'd emailed him weeks ago, asking to meet, expecting silence. His reply, brief but polite, had surprised her. "Okay, neutral ground. Cafe on Pine, 10 a.m. She'd rehearsed what to say, scribbling notes in the journal she now carried everywhere. No excuses, no charm, just truth. Portland had changed her, not completely, not miraculously, but enough to see the wreckage she'd left. The boutique job, her brother's tough love, the quiet nights facing herself, they'd stripped away the gloss. She wasn't the Sabrina who'd mocked Michael in Napa. She hoped he'd see that. The door chimed, and Michael walked in. He looked different, stickier, his shoulders square, a faint tan from hiking. His eyes met hers, calm but guarded, and he nodded before sitting across from her. No smile, no warmth, just presence. Sabrina swallowed, her throat dry. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice softer than she'd planned. He nodded again, waiting. No small talk, she'd expected that. Michael had never been one for fluff, and she'd lost the right to expect it. She took a breath, her fingers tightening on the mug. "I'm sorry, Michael. For everything. Napa, the money, the way I treated you. I was awful. I took you for granted and I hurt you. I see that now." He leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Go on." She hesitated, then pushed forward, the words spilling out. "I got caught up, likes followers, this image I thought I needed. I made you feel small to feel big. It was wrong, and I'm ashamed. I didn't just lose you and the kids, I lost myself." Her voice cracked, but she didn't look away. "I'm not asking to fix us. I know that's gone. I just needed you to hear this. From me, no filter." Michael listened, his hands folded on the table. She saw the weight of their past in his eyes. Years of her dismissals, her ambitions swallowing their family. But there was no anger, just distance. "Why now?" he asked, his tone even. "Portland," she said simply. "Working. Living with Mark. Being alone. It forced me to look at myself. I didn't like what I saw. I'm trying to be better. For me, for the kids someday. I owed you this first." She paused, searching his face. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you believe me." He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze steady. "I believe you're trying," he said finally. But what you did, it wasn't just Napa. It was years, Sabrina. Years of me begging to be seen. His voice stayed calm, but the truth landed hard. I'm glad you're finding your way, but my life's with Tyler and Madison now. They're my priority. You and I, we're done. She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. She'd known this, but hearing it stung. I understand. If the kids ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure. She slid a folded note across the table. Her number, nothing more. For them, not you. He took it, pocketing it without a word. Then he stood, his chair scraping softly. Take care, Sabrina. He walked out, the door chiming behind him. Sabrina stayed, staring at her tea. It wasn't closure, not fully, but it was enough. She'd said what she needed, and he'd heard her. For now, that was all she could carry. Michael Gray sat on his porch as dusk settled over Seattle, the sky a soft bruise of purple and gold. Tyler and Madison's voices spilled from the backyard, arguing over a board game with Erica, their laughter weaving through the evening air. A year had passed since Napa. Since the unraveling of a life he'd thought was his, a storm that broke him open, then set him free. He leaned back in his chair, a glass of iced tea sweating in his hand. The betrayal still lingered, Sabrina's words, sharp as glass, calling him a burden. But it was distant now, like a bruise faded to a shadow. He'd rebuilt, not just for the kids but for himself. Tyler was 15, all lanky confidence, testing boundaries but still sneaking hugs. Madison, 11, painted her room blue and read to him at night, her voice steady with trust. They were his anchor, his proof that love could hold through chaos. Erica was different, quietly vital, like breath after holding it too long. She sat beside him now, her fingers brushing his as she laughed at Madison's exaggerated groan from the yard. They weren't married, weren't even talking about it, but they were building something real, volunteer projects, weekend hikes, dinners with the kids. It was simple, grounded, enough. Michael hadn't known joy could feel so unforced. He thought of Sabrina sometimes, not with anger but curiosity. Her apology had stuck with him, raw, stripped of pretense. She was out there, piecing herself together, maybe finding what she'd lost. He hoped so, for the kids' sake. They'd see her soon, Madison had asked last week, and Michael had nodded, ready to hand over her number. He'd protect them, always, but he wouldn't block their path. The bigger picture settled over him like the evening's cool air. Betrayal had cracked his world, but it also woke him up. He'd been sleepwalking through work, through marriage, through himself. Napa forced him to choose, shrink or stand. He'd stood. Self-respect wasn't loud, it was this. Showing up, loving fiercely, letting go of what didn't serve him. The kids' laughter. Erica's warmth. "A penny for your thoughts," Erica said, her voice teasing. Michael smiled, meeting her eyes. "Just glad to be here." She squeezed his hand, and they turned to watch the kids, the game dissolving into a pile of giggles. The stars were coming out, faint against the city's glow. Michael breathed deep, the weight of the past gone. He was home, whole, and finally free. Michael Gray stood in his Seattle backyard, the late spring air cool against his skin. The lawn was freshly mowed, and Madison's laughter rang out as she chased Tyler with a water gun, her ponytail bouncing. Tyler, now taller than Michael remembered, dodged her, grinning, his phone forgotten for once. It had been 9 months since Napa, and the house felt alive again, messy, loud, theirs. Michael leaned against the porch railing, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. He'd fought for this. The divorce was final. Sabrina had faded into her own world, and Michael had rebuilt his. Tyler and Madison were thriving, school, soccer, dance recitals, and he'd learned to braid Madison's hair, to listen to Tyler's rants about video games. The family therapist helped, but mostly it was time, love, and showing up. They asked about their mom sometimes, and Michael kept it simple. "She's figuring things out. You'll see her when you're ready." He'd give them Sabrina's number when they asked, no sooner. Life had opened up in ways he hadn't expected. Last fall, at a community cleanup in Volunteer Park, he'd met Erica. She was a high school science teacher, grounded and warm, with a laugh that cut through his guardedness. They'd started with coffee, then hikes, then dinners at his place. She wasn't Sabrina, no flash, no chase for attention, just steady, kind, real. Michael hadn't realized how much he'd craved that. Today, Erica was here, sitting on the porch steps, clapping as Madison landed a solid hit on Tyler. She'd met the kids a month ago, slowly, no pressure. Madison adored her. Erica knew all the Harry Potter spells, and Tyler, wary at first, warmed up when she helped him with a chemistry project. They weren't rushing anything. Michael wasn't ready for promises, and Erica didn't ask for them. But her presence felt right, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. "Dinner's almost ready," Michael called, heading inside to check the grill. Burgers, corn, a salad, simple, the way he liked it. Erica followed, grabbing plates from the cupboard like she'd done it 100 times. "Smells amazing," she said, brushing his arm. He caught her eye, and for a moment, the world was just them. The kids bore readily and dripping from their water fight, arguing over who won. Erica tossed them towels, teasing Tyler about his terrible aim. Madison giggled, and even Tyler cracked a smile. They sat around the table, plates piled high, the conversation easy. Later, as the kids cleared dishes, Michael and Erica stepped outside. The sky was pink, the city humming beyond the trees. "This was nice," she said, leaning into him. He nodded, his arm around her shoulders. "Yeah, really nice." He thought of Sabrina briefly, her apology, her changed demeanor in the cafe. He wished her well, but she was a closed chapter. His life was here. Tyler's sarcasm, Madison's hugs, Erica's quiet strength. For the first time in years, Michael wasn't bracing for the next blow. He was just living, and it was enough.